This is our bi-monthly Insights on Aging program, and it's my pleasure to welcome you today. Our topic today is building healthier relationships, and I am Sharon Dornberg-Lee. I'm the Clinical Director of Community Services at CJE Senior Life. And we want to start today by acknowledging that May is Mental Health Month. The tradition of focusing on mental health in May was established all the way back in 1949, which surprised me to learn. The theme this year is where to start mental health in a changing world. In addition to this being Mental Health Month, as it is every year, on May 1st, it was the 7th annual Older Adult Mental Health Awareness Day. So we're celebrating both of those events and recognitions this month and with our program today. It can be really overwhelming to navigate all of the changes and challenges that are happening all around us, whether it's the pressures of aging and relationships, all the things going on in our society like politics, war, climate change, all of the many, many things we're facing. And those things can all really impact our mental health, sometimes even more than we realize, which is why we sponsor these community education programs, because we really want to keep the spotlight on mental health all year long. This series, Insights on Aging, is sponsored by CJE's Counseling Services program. And so I want to just say a couple words about that. We want to make sure everybody knows that we offer counseling services via telehealth on Zoom, as well as in person in our Rogers Park and Deerfield offices. We provide individual, family, and group therapy, as well as a variety of support groups. All of our services are either free or billable to insurance. I want to just, I want to highlight a couple of our offerings. We're about to begin a new session of our 8-week group for those who are experiencing chronic pain. And that's going to begin on June 3rd. And so if we're still looking for a couple more people, if anybody wants to join that group, you can reach out directly to the group leader, Peter Circus, at 773-508-1041. Or if you call our main number, they will connect you to Peter as well. We also offer Pearls, which is a type of counseling that's evidence-based. It's one-on-one counseling, not a group. It's for depression, but it's very short-term and problem-solving focused. It's just 6 to 8 sessions, and that's billable to insurance. So if you want more information about Pearls or any of our other services, please call us at our main number, 773-508-1000, and they'll direct you and be happy to help you. I do want to mention that if there are any professionals in attendance today, we don't offer CEUs for these community education programs. So we're glad you're here, but wanted to make you aware that this is not a CEU program. Please be aware that all of our Insights on Aging programs are recorded, and then we post them on our website and our YouTube channel. And you'll be getting a follow-up email with the link to this recording, as well as today's slides and resources. You'll get that email with either today or Monday as soon as I can get it out, but it might take a couple of weeks for the recording to be prepared and then posted on our website. So note that that's coming. Because this program is recorded, in order to protect your privacy, that's why we can't see each other. You can see me and you can see Anita, our speaker, but you won't be able to see the other participants, unfortunately. But we still really want you to participate, and that's why we have the Q&A feature. So you can please use the Q&A to post any comments or questions. If you want to make it anonymous, you can check that little box. It says anonymous when you ask your question. We did disable the chat feature, so use the Q&A feature to ask questions or make comments. We also want to make you aware that to view the CART transcriber's closed captioning of today's program, you will need to turn this feature on by selecting the CC Live transcript icon at the bottom of your screen, and then you can adjust the font size to fit your needs as well. So thank you to Zeke, who's in the background there today, providing CART transcription for those who would benefit from that. I will monitor the Q&A, and I might hop back on if there's a question that it's important to answer sooner rather than later. Otherwise, know that we'll get to your questions in about the last 10 minutes of this morning's program. So after all that, thank you for listening to all of that. On to our program. It's my honor to introduce our speaker today, Anita Pildes. Anita is SHALVA's Community Education and Outreach Coordinator, bringing domestic abuse awareness programming to the Jewish community, law enforcement, medical and other professionals, as well as the general public. She was previously Vice President, General Counsel of Mellon Bank, First United Leasing Corporation, and she was a litigator. She was also a Jewish studies educator for many years. Anita earned her bachelor's degree and her bachelor's in social work from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. That's where my sister went, Anita. And she earned her law degree from IIT Kent College, Chicago, Kent College of Law. So Anita, I'm gonna hand it over to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharon, so much. It's really wonderful to be here, and I appreciate your taking your time, all of you, for spending your morning with me on this lovely, lovely day. SHALVA means tranquility in Hebrew, and we believe that everybody should feel safe and tranquil in their homes. And maybe you, over the many decades, have seen our bathroom posters in bathroom stalls, in synagogues and in restaurants around the community. And hiding in those bathroom stalls in privacy, because domestic abuse can be hiding in plain sight, especially in Jewish community. But domestic abuse can affect anyone, and it can be affecting somebody in this virtual space directly or indirectly. It could be affecting somebody that we know. It can be a neighbor, it can be a relative, and so this might be something that might trigger some emotions. And please take care of yourself. If you need to take a break and turn off your camera for a moment, please do so. And know that this might be a tough topic. And we're going to talk about how to build healthy relationships, because this is something that we as a community can do. But in order to do that, we also have to talk about what makes a healthy relationship and also what makes an unhealthy relationship. So we're going to start off with definitions and descriptions, and also how to help somebody who might be in an unhealthy relationship. And we'll talk a little bit about SHALVA, and then to the core of what we're talking about, which is to how to help our community, and our community as our families is how to help build healthier relationships. And then, as Sharon said, we'll have plenty of time for questions, but please put in the chat feature, ask questions, so that during the session, and Sharon will stop me, and so that if there's something that you want to know right then, she'll stop me and you'll be able to ask a question right then and there. So a little bit about SHALVA at the very beginning. SHALVA offers a deep Jewish cultural competency and expertise in domestic abuse to support our diverse community. And oops, I'm so sorry, we went in the wrong direction. We're still going in the wrong direction. I'm so sorry. Let's move forward. SHALVA is the oldest Jewish domestic abuse agency in the country. It started as a group of women who saw that domestic abuse was happening in our community and knew that women were not going to mainstream domestic abuse agencies, perhaps out of fear that those agencies might not be sensitive to their cultural traditions, and might not understand what might be a barrier for them seeking help. And out of that concern, SHALVA got started, and it was in 1986. And today we provide culturally sensitive, trauma-informed counseling and supportive services and community education, such as this, throughout the Chicago metropolitan area. And I will get to more about our services as we go along. So a little bit about domestic abuse. As I said before, domestic abuse can affect anyone. And yes, it can happen to Jewish people. Jewish people abuse and can be abused equally across the Jewish identity. It doesn't matter what profession people are a part of, how much education they have, what neighborhood they live in, how old they are. People who are 18 to 24 years old, women, are the most affected. And it doesn't matter if somebody is older. People who are 60 years and older are also a group of people who are abused. So let's talk about what relationships are. There's healthy, unhealthy, and abusive relationships. Let's talk about using money as an example. In a healthy relationship, there's an equal partnership. There may be disagreements because all relationships have disagreements. But in the end, with communication, there's a resolution, and people are able to move on. There's no secrets, and there's resolution if there's disagreement. In an unhealthy relationship, it's just the opposite. There's secrets, there's lots of arguing, and there's an overarching discord. In an abusive relationship, one person is controlling the money, and they are controlling the relationship. And that's where we're going to devote our time right now. So what is domestic abuse? The definition that is usually used is that domestic abuse is a systematic pattern of power and control for the sole purpose of manipulating an intimate partner. The behavior is reserved for the partner, not for somebody else, a coworker or another relative or another person that they have come into contact with. Domestic abuse and domestic violence are interchangeable terms. You'll hear both, and it is never justified. So there's different types of abuse, and they're simply tactics for control. It's not a single event, and it's not caused by mental health issues or drug or alcohol use, though those incidents, it may make a single incident worse. And the reason for that is that not everyone with diminished capacity abuses. So if you think about that for a second, it will start to make sense to you. So as we look at emotional, physical, digital, or technological abuse, financial, sexual, and spiritual abuse. I'll give you some examples as we go along here. So, emotional abuse. There's a component to emotional abuse in all types of abuse. So let me give you some examples. One partner blaming the other for falling. It's beyond their control, but yet constantly blaming them for things. A husband ridiculing their wife for having a second helping and doing that at a dinner party in front of others, an example. Gaslighting, you hear a lot about that. It comes from the movie from long ago. Blaming, making somebody feel like they're crazy. Or blaming their spouse for the abuse that they are inflicting on them. These are all types of emotional abuse. Isolating somebody is another one, not letting them do the things that they like to do, or not letting them leave their home, forcing them not to do the things they like to do. So physical abuse, often the most talked about, but just one of many types of abuse. Pushing somebody or causing harm in that way, but it's also things like withholding medicine, or not taking somebody to a medical appointment. If you hear of a friend of yours saying, you know, my spouse won't take me to my medical appointments because they're mad at me, that's a form of physical abuse. Or you know, I can't drive anymore, but I can't pick up my prescriptions because my husband or my wife is upset with me or doesn't want to do it. Well, that's a form of abuse. And keep in mind, again, this is not a child who's doing that. This is a spouse or a part of an intimate partner. So financial abuse, and this is something that is very common. It's one of the more common types of abuses with SHALVA clients. It's somebody controlling money, restricting access to money. And it doesn't matter how much money somebody has in a partnership, or even if somebody is making themselves money, if they have to turn their paycheck over to their partner and they don't have access to it, they don't have control over it, even if they do earn a paycheck. Or having the partner remove their name as beneficiary without their partner knowing about it, that's another form of abuse. So that's financial abuse. Technical abuse or digital abuse. If you're seeing your niece constantly receiving texts from her boyfriend and she's upset about it, that might be a form, she might be experiencing a form of digital or technological abuse. There's all kinds of technology out there that can track somebody and check on people's whereabouts. It's all very scary, and it's all a way to somebody. And this is another form of abuse, because it's another way to control somebody, to figure out where they are, to intimidate. And this is something that is very pervasive, unfortunately, in our society today. Sexual abuse. Again, it's a form of control, forcing somebody to engage in activities that they don't want to. Reproductive coercion. If you hear of a relative who is being forced to have have a child that they don't want to have, or vice versa, that is a form of sexual abuse. And marital rape is a thing that occurs, and yes, it does happen in the Jewish community. Spiritual abuse. Anytime that one partner tries to force their beliefs on their partner is a form of spiritual abuse. Sometimes in the Jewish community, one partner will, the husband refusing to give their wife a get or a Jewish divorce decree, or use that giving of the get as a form of extorting a certain extracting certain concessions is a form of abuse. And that's something that we also see at SHALVA, and something to be aware of. So there's lots of reasons why people stay in situations that I mentioned before. But as a community, the question shouldn't be, why does somebody stay? The question as a community, we want to say, why doesn't someone stop the abuse? And as a community, we want to reframe the question, because abuse is never justified. And as a community, if we try to change the focus, we will be doing a lot to help break the cycle. The top 3 barriers to leaving are finances, because it is difficult for somebody who has perhaps been forced to quit their job and be under the thumb of the person who's causing harm, to say, you don't need to work, I will take care of things, but yet be controlled by their partner or the children, because their situation will be such that otherwise they won't be able to go to college, or they won't be able to have the necessities to go to school and the other things such as that. Or the abuse, because it happens in a cycle and the person who is causing harm doesn't do so all the time. When things happen in a cycle, an abusive incident happens, and then there's what's called a honeymoon period after the person who's abusing apologizes and said it won't happen again. And then there's this time that something is just fine, and then something happens again, and the abuse happens again, and it goes into a cycle. And people want to believe that it won't. They because of the other 2 reasons, such as finances and children, they just want to believe optimistically that things will be okay. For those 3 reasons, it becomes very difficult to move on, along with the other reasons that I've listed on this slide. So a little bit more about children. Yes, domestic abuse affects children, but the cycle can be broken. But we as a community need to know that, one, we have a voice, that we have a voice in knowing what is acceptable and healthy as relationships, and what role we can play to help those who are with children, be they teachers and educators, and also what role we can play to help children know what's healthy, and also because it is a learned behavior, to help teach children what is a healthy relationship. So what are the red flags? And how can we help stop abuse and stop the cycle? So what if you are seeing, you play bridge with your friends every week, and you have a friend who is starting to see somebody new, and suddenly they stop playing bridge inexplicably. Maybe it is that their new partner is controlling what they do. That would be a red flag. It's a summer and somebody you know is suddenly wearing a turtleneck. Maybe that person has a bruise on their neck. There might be physical abuse in their relationship. You are going to a synagogue event and one partner is acting extremely jealously when this person that you know or perhaps don't know, this partner is acting extremely jealously when this one person is talking to a member of the opposite sex. That is a sign of abuse. What if you see a partner is controlling their partner in any way, or is demeaning to their partner in any way in public? These are all signs of abuse. And the bottom line is, and this is on the slide, trust your gut. If something doesn't look right, it might not be, and it's worth asking a question. The worst that will happen is that the person that you know, your friend or your relative, says, it's okay, I'm okay, and everything is fine, and no harm has come of your asking and being a good friend or relative, and everything is okay. So what do you say? Skip the slide here. We're in the wrong place. You go to what we say and what we don't say. Sorry, skipped a slide there. So what do you say? So you want to make sure you talk in private, and you want to offer support and offer resources. One of the places, if we provide the services for them, is to say that you can call SHALVA. What you want to say, I'm here for you, I'm worried about you, what can I do to help? And it's not your fault, because domestic abuse is never the survivor's fault. What you don't want to say is to tell them what to do. You shouldn't say you should. If I were you, why haven't you? Why don't you? Those are things that may be harmful. The goal is to allow the survivor to regain their own control of their own lives and not to tell them what to do. The person who's causing them harm is telling them what to do all the time. No blaming. It's never their fault. And again, the only person who can fix the problem is the survivor, and the person who's been controlling them in their relationship has been doing enough controlling. So you don't want to add to that situation. So I want to, obviously I have some slide issues here, so I apologize for that. Let's talk a little bit about SHALVA services, because one of the things that you can do is recommend SHALVA's services. So SHALVA has a 24/7 helpline. We have community education. And we at our core have counseling and counseling services, and we have a legal liaison, which I'll explain in a second. And we also have an Orthodox Rabbinic Task Force, which is a group of rabbis who are trained specifically to help people who in the Orthodox community who may be a conduit for somebody who may be unsure if they might want to seek out services within to seek services from SHALVA. So who are our clients? Currently, they are people who are 18 years and older, self-identify as Jewish, married or not married, and anywhere along the path to healing. So it can be somebody who is processing a relationship that was long ago. And it might be a situation where somebody is seeing their own children exhibiting behavior, their adult children behaving like their own parent, and saying, gee, I just don't want to see this in another generation, and want to process that. So we see people in all kinds of situations, and it's very important to know that all of our services are free, regardless of financial need. There's always a place for you. You're not taking a spot of somebody who might be in a financial need. So a little bit about our counseling services. They're our therapists, all of whom have a master's degree or more, are culturally sensitive, who understand Jewish traditions. And that's what's unique about SHALVA, that if during a session, somebody is talking about a Jewish life cycle event, be it a Jewish funeral or a bar mitzvah or a bris, and one of those life cycle events is a triggering event to an abusive incident, then the person doesn't have to stop in the middle of a session and say, gee, I have to stop to explain it to a therapist. They don't have to do that. All our meetings are all on the phone, in person, or virtually, and for as long as needed. And again, everything is free. We also have they're in person or a group or individual, and our location is not disclosed for the safety of our clients, which is also good to know. And we also provide legal and financial services. And again, they're free. So let's talk a little bit about growing healthier relationships, because now we've talked about unhealthy relationships, and now what can we do as a community? But before we get there, does anybody have any questions right off the top?
I don't see anything in the Q&A, but I want to encourage folks again to feel free to use that Q&A feature if you'd like to ask a question.
Okay, yeah, before we pivot.
Can I share a personal story?
Yes, please, Sharon.
My best friend growing up got married when we were in our early 20s, and she told me I was the maid of honor for her wedding. Shortly before she got married, she confided in me that her fiance had hit her or shoved her. And I was so concerned. I was so young and naive. And I, of course, talked to her, supported her, but I always wished that I had done more. They went ahead and got married. I wanted to say, don't marry him, which you said is not a helpful thing to do. But I wished that I would have really encouraged her to slow down and had, second thoughts. The marriage ended in divorce. And anyway, I know you're going to go on and talk about how to help friends, and you've been talking about how to help somebody. But I just wanted to share that personal story, that we don't want to be in a position where we're like, oh, were they trying to sell me something? Could I have done more? So for what that's worth, wanted to add that. I don't see anything in the Q&A, so I think we can go ahead and proceed.
Okay, well, thank you, Sharon. And that, you raised something that is such a good point, because, it's always better, and it's something that I touched on, but you raise it in such a poignant way that, when I say go with your gut, and maybe I'll go back to that slide for a second. With the red flags, that, it's always better to say something, and say, like when you had said, I wish I had said something, and trusting your gut, that, it is better to say, gee, gosh, I feel kind of silly that I said it, is a much better feeling than to have not said something. And when I was in college, I didn't say something. I was living with a group of people, and clearly our next door neighbors were in an abusive relationship, and there was yelling, and there were, sounds that suggested there were plates being thrown and whatnot. And we didn't have the knowledge. We weren't listening to SHALVA webinars, and we didn't have the tools. We didn't have the helpful, harmful statements to go with on what to say and not to say. And it still resonates with me every time I do this program, of saying, gee, I didn't have these tools. I still remember that so many years ago, and wish that we knew. And one of the things that we feel so strongly about at SHALVA is that this is something that we hope that everybody knows, and once they participate in this program, that we share, that the people who participate, you all, that you share with somebody else. I learned this today, that when somebody is concerned about somebody, that we say to them, I believe you, that how can I help you? What do you need? And that each of you, when you leave this program today, that you all become SHALVA ambassadors, because this is something that goes on. It doesn't matter how old you are, and it doesn't matter how much money you have, that this is something that can happen. And there's one other point that is important, which is that on the things not to say, is that have you tried couples counseling? Because couples counseling, which is not ever advised, is based on the idea that there's a partnership, that there's some equality in and a balance between the two partners. And that does not exist in an abusive relationship. So there's a safety concern that if the person who's being abused speaks up, that there may be a safety issue when they leave that counseling session. And also, the person who's causing harm, the person who is abusing, tends to be a charmer to their partner when they're not abusing, and a charmer to everyone else besides their partner. So at work, with everybody else that they come into contact with, and they're probably going to charm the therapist and deny that they are abusing their partner. And so there's a credibility issue. So when we say to a couple, have you tried counseling? It's probably not advisable. And so it's sending somebody in the wrong place. So it's another point to bring up here. So Sharon, when you were talking to your couple, it's a good thing you didn't say that, because it would have sent them in the wrong direction.
Great point. Anita, we do have a question that I'm going to read to you from an attendee. There have been a lot of examples of abuse provided that do not include physical abuse. Would the police consider non-physical abuse as abuse, and could this be reported?
Oh, that's such a great question. Police have become much more attuned to the idea that physical abuse, that abuse that's not physical is abuse. Caveat though, sometimes they cannot file a complaint. I mean, a complaint cannot get filed unless there's some intimidation. Technical abuse, absolutely. If there's stalking involved, the isolation or the following of somebody, because stalking is a crime. So there has to be a crime involved. So financial abuse, if a crime, there has to be a crime that is involved. But police officers have become much more aware of the other types of abuse besides physical abuse. But their hands are tied to the extent that a crime has to be involved. But technical abuse and financial abuse are a part of that. So they're much more attuned to it, and they're not dismissing it, the tech abuse, the way they were. Before, they were dismissing that and saying, no, that's not abuse. They are accepting that.
Can I just tag on to that excellent answer, Anita, and say, if the person being abused is an older adult, 60 or older, then you can also report it to Adult Protective Services, whether the abuser is a spouse or an intimate partner, or an adult child, or a paid caregiver, whoever it is. You can report to the APS hotline, and that number is 866-800-1409, 866-800-1409. Ideally, you would do that with the older adult who is being abused, but you can also make the report without them anonymously, so that a social worker could come out and offer assistance to that potential victim in that situation.
Sharon, will you please put that number? I put the SHALVA hotline number in the chat, but will you please put
I'm going to put both numbers in a follow-up email. Unfortunately, the way the webinars work is we can't send a message to all of you in the chat. We can only respond to questions that the attendees post. But I'm going to make sure in the follow-up email, everybody gets the number I just gave, as well as the SHALVA hotline. So you'll have both of those numbers.
Right. Okay, great. Hopefully I have answered that question. But yes, the police officers have become very, very attuned to these things, and much more attuned to how to differentiate between elder abuse and domestic abuse. And so over time, it's gotten better. And with the trainings that I've been doing with the police, the local police departments, we are becoming wonderful partners with the police department, the local police departments. So it's a good thing. Anyway, in the interest of time, I'd like to move on to what we can do as members of the community to help grow healthier relationships, because that's the other side of the coin. And what SHALVA really devotes a lot of attention to. Because it's all about breaking the cycle of abuse within our own families. We have to think about what we think is our value system and our own attitudes about what makes a good relationship, how we think about members of the opposite sex, who are our heroes. A lot of talk about sports characters, but also who we think is our heroes in media and in the movies and sports figures and whatnot, and share those values with the younger generations, and speak up about it. Share it when we're watching TV with our kids and grandkids. Don't wait for them to ask you, just say it, and lead by example. We always tell people that we're speaking with, communicate open, early, and often. Talk to the little grandkids. And build those relationships early and share it early in the park, on the playground, when you're sitting on the sidelines at the soccer game to around the Seder table. And of course, participating in SHALVA activities to learn more, because this is just scratching the surface. Within our own community, what can we do? We need to first and foremost, as I've been talking ad nauseum about it this hour, viewing this topic as a community issue. Encourage education. If you belong to a synagogue, make sure that this topic of healthy relationships, how to talk to kids about healthy relationships, how for children, how to build healthy relationships, that's part of the religious school or Jewish studies school curriculum. Advocate for change. What are the laws like on the books in Springfield? And what about the media? What is on in the news, on TV? We can have an influence on that. Writing a letter to the editor, we do have a voice. And things like making sure that our schools, be it the religious school, be it the public school, that all of the staff is trained to identify domestic abuse and know the things that you learned today, how to identify the warning signs, what to say, what not to say, and be able to identify if somebody is abusing somebody. And again, be able to teach healthier relationships in the community and be the upstander. In other words, be able to say something when somebody is doing something that is inappropriate. And looking for more than physical abuse. So the question that one of the participants asked about, are the police helping those who are not just being physically abused? It's imperative that the community realizes that there's more than just the black eye, that all too often people think, and I'm sure you've heard this, of people saying, oh, they didn't get beat up, So I don't, they didn't get beat up, but actually, but that wasn't, therefore, the implication is they weren't really being abused when in fact they were. It's not a disclaimer for abuse. And that is all too often we hear that. And that's not, it isn't a discount to what abuse is. And so that's really, really important. What else? Again, does anybody have any questions about this all important, all encompassing slide?
I don't see any other questions in the chat, in the Q&A rather. If anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to answer them or to ask them. I was just going to add, Anita, we're kind of about 6 or 7 minutes left if we need them, but I'm going to need a couple of minutes to say my thank yous and let people know about the next time. But I wanted to just add that if you are not Jewish, or if you know somebody who is not Jewish, who is struggling with domestic abuse, SHALVA will still give you resources. They exist to serve the Jewish community, but you can absolutely still call their hotline and they'll give you other resources. CJE Senior Life, again, 773-508-1000. We don't have a 24-hour hotline, but during business hours, we're happy to give you resources for other domestic violence services and supports in the larger community for those who are not Jewish. So I wanted to make that point as well.
Right. And also to that point, Sharon, if somebody calls our helpline, if somebody calls us and we cannot help them for long-term, for whatever reason, that's okay. Because first of all, if somebody calls us, we will help them for as long as needed on that telephone call. And if we cannot help them long-term, we will make a referral to get them the help that they need. So people in the domestic abuse world, we have a very strong relationship with people who work in other domestic abuse agencies and also other Jewish community agencies. So Sharon and I have a very nice relationship. If it's something that if we are not the right place and instead it might be something that the CJE, Council of Jewish Elderly, can better help the person who calls us, we will send that person and say, you should call CJE. So in the same way that if somebody is not Jewish and we would say, what exact community do you live in? And we would make a referral to a domestic abuse agency in that particular community. And so that is an important point as well, because we won't just say, well, we can't help you and then hang up. So that's an important point as well. And also another thing to know is that SHALVA we will be having a luncheon to learn more about how media affects the story about relationships and domestic abuse and the view of relationships. And it's on and that might be something that we can put in that email. It's on June 25th. And it might be something to know about. Please go to our website to learn more about domestic abuse and to learn more about about this topic. Because it is, we have just scratched the surface. And so in the email that you send, I know you won't be able to do it about the luncheon, but to learn more about this topic, if you want to practice how to talk to somebody that you're concerned about, we have an interactive tool to practice what to say and not to say. to somebody, and it's on our website, and Sharon will be sending you the email that will give that information.
And
it
I'm
has-
happy to include the luncheon too. Just send me that info and we'll get it out to all of you. It sounds like a great
Okay.
event.
So we're running out of time here.
Yes, I think it's time to thank you, Anita. This has been wonderful. There are a couple of top comments in the Q&A just to thank you, to say this
Okay.
was a wonderful program and a font of information. And yes, we will get people the slides. So I want to thank you all so much for attending. We want to thank Anita for a wonderful presentation and for all of that really important information that you shared with folks today. And we hope all of you will in turn share this information with others in the community. Please watch your email for an announcement of our next Insights on Aging program. That'll be on Friday, July 12th at 11 a.m. And our topic next time will be Back to Basics, Coping with Curveballs. Learn how to proactively navigate life's challenges by applying the basic PH model developed by Israeli psychologist Dr. Muli Lahad. And our speaker that time will be Jewish Child and Family Services mental health educator Bracha Tchaikovsky. As you leave our webinar today, a screen will pop up with an evaluation for today's program. So please take just a moment to complete that to let us know if this was useful and your ideas for future programs. I will send out an email with the slides and the other information we mentioned today. So watch your email for the follow-up email to this program, and it will include the link to our website where the full recording of today's program can be found. But again, that actual video recording won't show up there. It could even be a couple weeks until they kind of edit that down and prepare that to post. But you'll get the link right away today or on Monday. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. We so appreciate you for taking the time to attend, and we hope we'll see you again at the next one. And thank you, Anita, and thank you, Zeke, our closed captioner, for today's program in the background there. Be well, everybody. Good Shabbos if you observe Shabbos, and a happy weekend to everybody. Be well.
Thank you so much, everyone.